All right, I'm joined today by Adam Wildavsky. First question is always, how did you learn bridge?
I was visiting my grandparents, my mother's parents, in Lakes Peekskill, New York. I was 15 or so, was staying with them for the summer. And Lakes Peekskill is a lovely place, but there's not that much to do there. And I found some books on bridge on their shelf, and they had a device called Auto Bridge.
Auto bridge.
And as best I can remember, that's how I learned.
Wow. So just reading and playing auto bridge.
Right. And my grandparents did play, which is why they had that stuff. But we did not play that summer. I played with them a few years later when I was more accomplished.
So you got back from the summer. Did you like talk some friends into learning or anything like that?
I don't think I talked anybody into learning, but it turns out some of my friends already knew how to play. I had been playing every game under the sun until that point. I loved games. I was serious about chess, and I played, card games, war games, African stone games, Japanese stone games, dice games. You named it, I played it. And over time, bridge drove all the other games out of my life.
What was it about bridge that took over?
There were two things that I can remember at the time. One was that I was a lot better at bridge than chess. I was better at bridge after a few weeks than I was at chess after a few years. And the other reason, which may or may not have been more important, was that the girls I wanted to date played bridge.
Yep, that'll do it.
And, the chess world was fine, but not a lot of young women there.
All right. So how did it continue from there? What happened next?
I had a chess playing friend named Chris. I was in Oakland, California. He was in Berkeley. We were both in high school, and we both used to go to the UC Berkeley Chess Club on Thursday nights. And we had both learned bridge. I don't remember why he learned it, if I ever knew. But the bridge club met the same night. One evening, we decided to go to the bridge club rather than the chess club. And we joined their duplicate, and I don't think we broke average, but we had a good time. And that was that. I was hooked.
Yeah. And then college, and were you in the junior program or anything like that?
Oh, there was no junior program. I started at MIT in 1977. There had been late 60s, early 70s, a lot of really good players at MIT, which is not why I chose it. I had no idea. But then by the time I had arrived, they had all left. Chip Martell had left. Ken Lebensall had left. Lou Reich had left. Just a lot of them. There was one remaining, but he never played. We never saw him at the Bridge Club. He barely played tournaments. I found out about him when he played in the Spin Gold final in the Boston Nationals, 80 or 81. His name is Rich Friesner. And he's still quite a strong player. He lives in Westchester now, but again, hardly ever plays.
And then, you went on to have a career in computer industry. How did you make time for bridge during that career?
Well, I was self-employed for about half my career, so I just gave myself the vacation time. And when I was working, sometimes I could not go to every national or, I didn't prioritize it. I interviewed with Google in 2004, and new employees there get 2 weeks vacation time. I told my recruiter, I'm going to need more than that. And she said, "Oh, it's fine. You can just take extra time off without pay." And I said, "That's fine with me." And, and she did mention, it would require management approval, but that, that was pro forma. And I think she was just saying whatever she needed to say. But in fact, I did always get management approval, usually not grudgingly at all.
Yeah, I would imagine somewhere like Google, you're like, hey, I'm a national champion bridge player. I need to go to the national championships. And they'd be like, you do you, buddy.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't make that connection, but that was on my resume, probably helped me get hired.
Yeah.
Then in 2009, my team won the USBC, the US Bridge Championships. And for the second time, the first time I had been self-employed, so I just could take whatever time I wanted to prepare. This time, I asked Google for a leave of absence. So I took 3 months off to prepare. Didn't help as much as I thought it would, or as I hoped it would. We did less well the second time than the first, but, there can be lots of reasons for that.
So what did that 3 months look like? What did you do?
I don't remember. Maybe I read more bridge books. I mean, there was no such thing as QBids in that time. I did try and nail down more system with my partner, but my partner was Doug Dow for both world championships.
Did Doug
And
take 3 months off of work as well?
He did not, but he was and is a, professional bridge player. He had some other part-time work, but mostly he didn't have, the constraints of a full-time job the way I did.
Did you think that in 3 months' time, like, dedicating yourself to bridge, that you would be a better bridge player? That your partnership would be a little more on solid grounds? What was your goal in that endeavor?
Yes, I wanted to be better, representing the country. I wanted to do the best job I could. I don't think I was successful. I mean, I had not read, Peak at that point by, Anders Ericsson, which I think you have read. But, I
Yes.
mean, I couldn't read it because it hadn't been published then, but, I guess I was familiar, with his research. But,
He's the one who popularized deliberate practice,
well, he
right?
came up with the concept, which Malcolm Gladwell in 2008 simplified in his book Outliers as, 10,000 hours of practice. And, most of us bridge players have, at least when we reach my age, we have played for 10,000 hours or more. But it's the deliberate practice that's important. It means, figuring out where you need work and concentrating on that.
So
And
would
I,
you say that that 3 months of practice you did was not deliberate practice?
it was not. No. I think maybe we had hired a coach and did some work with him. But, yeah, it's quite difficult to find a good bridge coach.
It is.
It's straightforward to find a strong player who can be objective in his analysis. But actual, coaching the way, Eric Kokish did and probably, Christoph Martens and others still do is relatively rare.
So if the same thing happened today, say you win the trials and you're going to the Bermuda Bowl, and I give you 3 months to prepare, what would the preparation look like now, knowing what you know?
It would be same as I'm doing because I'm retired. I mean, right now I have a few pursuits besides bridge. There's skiing and dancing, maybe a few others. I'm spreading myself a little too thin. So I would spend more time on bridge and less on the others. A few years ago, I tried to put together a spreadsheet, or you could call it a database, trying to figure out where we lost match and points and imps, whether it was on bidding, play, or defense, and then subcategorizing each of them with the idea that I'd find my weakest area and work on it or find the partnership's weakest area. And it was okay, but it was a lot of work and it told me things I already knew, which is I should work on defense, but it didn't tell me how to work on defense.
So how do you work on defense? What have you done? Like the first step is identifying that, and then you got to make a plan. So what have you done?
I'll let you know when I find out. I mean,
Okay, fair enough.
I hope I'm defending a little better now, but it's tough. And, I didn't mention opening leads, but that's also an important area and one that's not well understood.
What did you think of those books, Winning No Trump Leads and whatever, that, use the computer simulation?
Yeah, I bought one of them, but did not read it. It turns out just buying the book's not quite enough.
Hmm.
But I'm skeptical. I mean, whoever programmed the, Gib robots took that stuff to heart, and the robots, at least for a while, were making really poor leads, and they were also liable to be fooled. Once you knew that they were gonna often lead short suits against no trump, you could, organize your no trump bidding differently and take advantage of that.
So that's an interesting area of, call it scouting, knowing your opponents. And okay, the robots you play against a lot and you can manipulate them, but does the same thing apply against humans? Do you know tendencies of some people well enough to manipulate them?
Yes and no, and it's not even necessarily manipulation, it's just understanding. I think this
Yeah.
is one of the functions of a bridge coach. In 2003 in the Bermuda Bowl, my team worked with P.O. Sunderland, who knew the European players a lot better than we did, and I think that helped. We squeaked into the knockout round and then did well thereafter.
Yeah, I'm surprised that bridge players don't do more scouting. Knowing, okay, this guy leads really passively, and oh, this partnership account you can count on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm confident that I've been scouted, but on the other hand, it's a lot of effort, and there are few teams that can afford to hire a coach to do the scouting for them, or even if they can afford it, have the inclination to do it. One difference between bridge and some of the areas for improvement that Anders Ericsson discusses in his work is that bridge is intensely enjoyable in and of itself. So you don't always have the incentive to improve your performance, even though we think we do. So, a lot of my practice just playing online or bidding with Q bids online.
It's fun.
And that it is fun. And, especially with Q bids, you can learn from it because you can identify the problem auctions. I mean, one nice thing about Q bids, you get quick feedback. You reach a contract and you immediately get between 0 and 3 stars. Sometimes the grades are ridiculous, but you can see that.
Yeah.
More often they're reasonable.
Yeah. It's an amazing tool. How much are you using that these days?
I have 2 partners coming up for the St. Louis Nationals, one for the North American pairs and one for everything else, because Doug and I don't live in the same district, and doing on average 2 sets per day with each of them. So that's 16 boards. I do the weekly with one of them, so maybe it's almost 20 boards a day each, which is something like 1 session a day, but it takes a lot less time and it's more productive.
Absolutely.
When you're playing bridge, 1/4 of the time you're declaring. That's not a partnership issue. And defense is very important, but it's difficult to improve quickly at defense. It takes a lot of thought.
Quarter of the time you're on opening lead, and that's individual as well.
Yep, yep, good point. And then, bidding is, I don't know how much we really know about which areas are most important. I think bidding is the most important area of the game, but it's not so difficult to become a good bidder. I think it takes many, many years and effort to become a great bidder, but just becoming a good bidder will put you ahead of the game compared to most of the competition.
Why do you think the robots struggle so much more with the bidding than the play?
It doesn't play to their strengths, so to speak. We understand very well how the robots can play and defend using Monte Carlo simulations, and there's always effort to improve those. Bidding's a more difficult problem, but I think bridge in general has not progressed the way other games have, in particular chess and Go and backgammon in terms of computer play because, well, there's 2 reasons. Computers also play poker very well now. Because it's a more difficult problem for computers, largely because of the partnership aspect. And also, less resources have been devoted to computer bridge, probably by at least an order of magnitude, maybe more, compared to chess and Go and poker, some of the other games.
What do you think AI is going to do to bridge?
AI is promising, but it's not a panacea. We'll see.
I think it's going to revolutionize things. I think there's so many ways that we're in the dark ages in bridge. It's going to show us things that we never even dreamed of. So I think it's going to be quite a boon for us, but might put people like me out of business. We'll see.
We will see. One thing, I've been hoping for decades from bridge AIs is they would improve to the point where they were strong enough that we could use them to test our concepts. If you have a new convention or just any convention, see whether it's better or worse than the alternatives and by how much. If we had strong bridge robots, we could just play 10,000, 100,000 deals, with and without the difference and measure it.
Yeah.
And then, most of the deals, it would make no difference. And on the ones where it did, we could look and see if it was due to random factors or it was due to intrinsic merit or otherwise.
Yeah. It's that sort of big data stuff that I think AI is going to be able to help with. And one of the things we need to be able to do is capture data accurately and have view graph records that are accurate. What do you think about the Love Bridge stuff that the USBF does?
I love it. My
Me too.
girlfriend and I traveled to Hungary last year in part just to play in a, one more tournament that used tablets for bidding and play because, US Bridge Championships in Schaumburg are now my favorite tournament. I mean, it was my favorite tournament 20 years ago because I won it reasonably often. But now, even with no wins, just the playing conditions are amazing. I'd like to promote it as best I can. A lot of players are critical of playing with tablets rather than physical cards. but many of those haven't actually tried it or haven't tried it in good conditions.
Would you like to see that format in the later rounds of the Spingold and Vanderbilt?
I'd like to see it everywhere. In the European Bridge League and the WBF, we're now using it for bidding, but not for play. And that's, I like that well enough. It's an improvement, but it's not good for administrators because you have to do twice the work in terms of records. The Lovebridge Rat records are 100% perfect, which is not true in general for ViewGraph records. It is true for online bridge in general. If you look at the BBO or FunBridge or any other real bridge, their records are going to be 100% perfect. It's not clear to me how accessible they are to either casual or serious researchers. I know some people say they have records of millions of deals, but I'm not sure how they obtain them. But I'm not willing to do that work just yet. Maybe not ever, so I haven't looked into it.
So back when you were working, bridge was a hobby, but a serious hobby. How much did you work on your game between tournaments? How did you keep yourself sharp?
Sometimes I didn't. It was not good for my partner, when I'd show up at the nationals and I'd be, fuzzy the first day or two. But we all have our priorities. And I always read the Bridge World, and I read a whole lot of bridge books when I was younger, and that tapered off over the years. I have a good number on the shelf now that I haven't opened yet. And I ought to, but, life gets busy.
What are some of the books that were like really foundational for you?
When I was a teenager, I would buy books at the local used bookstore. So a lot of them were from the 50s or maybe 60s. I was learning four-card majors. And when I got to college or even spent the summer in New York before college, I found that most of the players were using five-card majors. So in a New York bookstore, I found a book called Five-Card Majors Western Style, and that introduced me to the system. That was useful. I enjoyed the Victor Mollo books, Bridge in the Fourth Dimension and what have you. I didn't always understand the deals until I reread them when I was a bit stronger, but the writing was entertaining. I learned a lot from Edgar Kaplan's books, some on the Kaplan-Scheinwald system that I started playing in college 50-ish years ago, and I still play.
You
And,
still play Kaplan-Scheinwald?
yeah.
Like the full thing? I mean, I know you like weak no trumps, but like the full system?
I play the full system with anybody who's willing to play it with me, which is fewer and fewer. So there's some unusual aspects. A diamond, a major, three clubs shows a minimum 5-5, and no transfers over the weak no trumps, which is probably theoretically best. But Doug loves the weak no trump, and some of the other things from Kaplan he's not as enthusiastic about. I'm pretty easygoing in that regard, even if something maybe is not theoretically best in my opinion, or just, it might be close. I'll just go with my partner because, there's nothing wrong with keeping your partner happy. It's valuable.
So do you have like a set of system notes from the 60s? Like where does the knowledge of this system come from?
Kaplan, 1972, he published a 30-ish page summary. You can find a link on my website now, or you can find his books from the late 50s, early 60s. They're still available here and there. The Kaplan-Scheinwald system of winning bridge.
So I would imagine that playing this system that is significantly different, both in practice of like the weak no trump, but also style to modern expert bridge creates a lot of variance. Have you experienced that?
Not as much as you might think, but yes. And I think variance is good if you want to win events rather than, if you want to get 60% scores rather than 55% scores. With more variance, you'll get more 60% and more under averages. But to win every so often, you need some big games.
It's an interesting philosophy of we don't need to be consistent, right? Just to win, you need some big games, and variance can create that.
Right. In a knockout match, if you're playing against a weaker team, you'd like lower variance. If you're playing a stronger team, you'd like higher variance.
So I played weak no trumps for a while, and the variance, I couldn't take it because, it was just so often that I was playing three no trump from the other side, and it was just a random, West has an automatic spade lead and East doesn't. and the spade lead sets it. And it was just kind of like 50-50 whether I had right sided it or wrong sided it. And that just drove me crazy. Have you had that experience?
Yes and no. I mean, yeah, it happens all the time. I found, in general, the good results outweighed the bad results. I mean, I'm not playing weak no trumps just to be different than the field. I'm playing them because they suit me. And I like the theory of it. And I found I like the practice of it. I mean, I've been playing, 50 ish years, roughly half with weak no trumps and half with strong no trumps because it's easier to find strong no trump players. And I've done decently with both, but I've only won big events playing weak no trumps.
Where do you think the theoretical advantage is?
I'm not sure there is. I think we should all play the system we're most comfortable with. I think, when I've won, it's because, we played well or our opponents played poorly. And only secondarily did the system help.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like at the top of the game, there's a lot of different systems people are playing, and it's not the big differentiator, is it?
Judgment is, I hope, always going to be important. I mean, I found it is. That's one thing practice with QBid is really useful for is improving bidding judgment. You have the usual decisions about, whether to try for game or slam, but also you're playing against robots that are somewhat active in the bidding, not as active as human experts, but they do get in there. So you have plenty of competitive decisions. And in a contemporary tournament, a huge number of your decisions are going to be competitive decisions.
Is there any way to really work on that other than just playing and getting that experience?
Experience helps. I think principles help too. Using the law of total tricks as a guide has made a big difference in the expert game and in average players' games. Maybe more so for average players because experts had pretty good judgment to begin with.
So how do you prioritize your bridge work? I mean, there's so much you could do. You could be reading, you could be practicing with partner. Like, how do you decide, okay, I only have this many hours to devote to this. I need to prioritize.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I figure that out.
Okay, fair enough. What about the mental side of the game? What do you do to stay mentally strong, to show up at the table as your best self?
Well, this is something I figured out in part early in my career. It has to do with emotional maturity. So when I was playing in my college bridge club, I had a partner who was enthusiastic. And we were both freshmen and we were at roughly the same level. And when the good players in the club got a poor result, not all of them, but some of them would yell at their partner. You should have done this. Why didn't you do that? And I got in that habit as well. And then I read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. You would not think had a bridge connection. But one element of her philosophy, arguably the most important, is that selfishness is a virtue. And I started to think why I was playing bridge. And one reason was the competitive aspect. I wanted to win. I wanted higher scores. I wanted to win more often. And I realized yelling at my partner was not conducive to that goal. And once I realized it was in my interest to be nice to my partner, I started putting that into practice and we got better results. A few years later, I noticed playing with a different partner that this one always wanted to discuss the hand after the deal. And he
Like
was
right there at the table?
right at the table. And he was possibly unusual. He was a better player than he was an analyzer. So at least half the time his analysis was wrong, at least in my view. But I also found it distracting. And then, at that same tournament, I played against a pair. They got a bad result against us on the first board. And I could see when they got a bad result on the second board that it was because they were thinking about the first board, one guy in particular. And he said, I do that too, and I shouldn't. So I came up with a kind of convention that we would not discuss boards at the table. And since then I've insisted that all my partners play it. Not everybody's capable of that, but even players who are bad at it can become better.
Was it an easy transition for you to leave things behind?
Yes and no. I still think about previous boards occasionally, but I want to do my best on the board in front of me. If I'm thinking about two boards at one time, I can't focus the way I should.
But it's so much easier said than done.
Yes, but what is easier is not discussing the boards. If you don't discuss the board, that's the first step to putting it out of your mind. And you can always, you can make a deal with your partner. You have some kind of fine anytime you bring up. Now, If I'm playing with a spouse or girlfriend, it's more difficult because she can see what I'm thinking in my face. But, that's why sometimes a poker face is useful at bridge too.
And then when you're at a tournament, do you have any routines? Do you exercise or anything like that?
I try to swim every day and I select a hotel on that basis. And I usually resolve to go to the gym during the tournament, but I seldom actually do it.
Do you drink alcohol during the tournament?
I do maybe a glass of wine every other night, depending where we are, depending where we're eating. And I have not noticed that it affects my performance. If I thought it did, then I would abstain.
I haven't noticed that it affects mine either. It just kind of intellectually says, I'm at this really important tournament. Like, I shouldn't be drinking alcohol, but I like having a glass of wine with dinner. And I haven't seen any negative effects.
Yeah. Well, we also have priorities. Drinking wine with a good meal is pleasant. And, you want to enjoy that. You also want to do as well as you can in the tournament. Maybe if I were playing professionally, I'd have to prioritize winning a little more, but it's not clear there's a connection anyway.
Have you found it more difficult these days to put together a competitive amateur team than it was 20 or 30 years ago?
That's never been easy. When I was in my 20s and early 30s, I thought as I became a stronger player, it would become easier to find partners and teammates. And I was mistaken. I'm not even sure now why I thought that, but the stronger you are, the smaller the universe of potential teammates. I mean, I do have a pretty good selection of partners now, but I've been working on that for years. And bridge, it's somewhat like dating. Everybody wants to play with a partner at least as strong or maybe stronger, but players mostly have an inflated opinion of their own ability. So in that sense, it's a wonder anybody ever plays with anyone else. There's nothing wrong with paying partners or teammates. I mean that can work fine too, and I do that sometimes. I can afford to now, and otherwise everybody would be playing on professional teams. That's something I learned from Mike Becker, who started doing that 25 years ago.
How does that change the dynamic on the team for you when you're paying for it?
Not much, at least not that I've noticed.
Well, that's good. Does it surprise you that a team of 4 or 6, really good players is a serious underdog to a team of 5 really good players and a weak sponsor?
No, because I'm not sure it's true. I mean, my team of 6 amateurs won the team trials twice. 2003, as underdogs, we had won the Reisinger the previous November. So we got a bye to the round of 8. So we had to win 3 matches to advance. And we did win 3. I think that was a one winner year, and Nickel had won in 2002. So we didn't have to face the Nickel team. That was an advantage. But otherwise, we had 3 matches, and I don't remember our margins. Then in 2009, had the same partner, Doug Daub again, but different teammates. And we started from the round robin, and we just won everything going away. But again, we had an advantage in not having to face the Nickel team. Fleischer had beaten Nickel, so we faced Fleischer in the, I forget, final or semifinal.
Still not an easy draw.
No,
Yeah,
but to date, I have not beaten the Nickel team. I still hope to one day.
right.
I think maybe beat them in a regional knockout, but not in a national or world championship.
But I mean, you look at the top 20, 30 seeds in the Spin Gold, and just about all of them have a playing sponsor. And it surprises me that, 4, 6 guys, gals can't like get together and be really competitive. I mean, we've seen it, like the foursome that won the team trials last year, right? Kaplan and Finn and Grossack and Wold. Like, it happens, but it's rare.
Right, and that was a few professionals playing as amateurs. I think they would have gotten hired by a client had they found one in time.
I just think it's amazing that in bridge you can kind of hide the sponsor to the extent that you can. I mean, there have been some sponsors who are pretty bad, but win world championships because, their team is that good.
For sure. Well, partly it was because the sponsor in the world championship level only had to play 1/3 the boards. In the ACBL, we've always had to play half. So I joined the UBF Executive Council a few years ago and have not accomplished much. But one thing was to increase the playing requirement to 50% instead of 33%. And I did not get much pushback from that at all.
What has that experience been like being in bridge administration at the world level?
Interesting, educational. I mean, I could give some euphemisms, but it's not something I recommend.
Are there areas that you think the WBF and or the European Bridge League are like significantly ahead of the ACBL in administration?
They have much smaller staffs than the ACBL, so they do more with less. They're using the tablets more, which I like. I guess in the ACBL, the only real administration I was involved in was appeals committees and laws committee, but those are pretty specialized.
How does being in WBF administration affect your play? Like, are you able to go to the world championships and play and serve on this committee?
Yes, because normally the meetings are the first week and the transnational events are the second week. If I qualify to represent the US in the USBCs, then I'd have to skip some of the meetings the first week. But, meetings are the bane of my existence. If I have to skip one, it's not a problem for me.
How did you get recruited for this position?
It's usual, I think. Jan Martel asked me.
I know we struggle here in North America with attracting people to the game, particularly younger people. Is the World Bridge Federation having any more success than we are?
Well, there's a few answers. The easy one is no. The other is it's not exactly the WBF's job or mission. I mean, the mission is to promote bridge in general, but the WBF doesn't have any members per se. The members are the national bridge organizations, and they're the ones who have players as members. So WBF just started an effort a few months ago under our new president, Frank Ream, to help the NBOs develop materials to attract new players. And Frank was the president of the French Bridge Federation, and they seem to have been doing pretty well at this. A few other countries have, Netherlands, China, but I don't think there's a formula for it.
Do you have any sense of what those countries do better?
In China, they've introduced bridge in schools. I don't know how many schools, but seems to be working. I mean, I could tell you why I think bridge is less popular than it used to be. It's not that bridge has changed, it's that the world has changed. There's so many more interesting things to do in the world. I mean, if we'd had video games when I was a teenager, I don't know if I'd have ever done anything else. And, never mind other games, the world is a lot more sophisticated than it was in the 1930s. Then, with the Depression, nobody had any money, didn't need any money to play bridge. All you needed was a deck of cards. If you didn't have a deck of cards, you could make your own. So became almost a universal pastime.
I feel like I have an okay sense of bridge in Europe and a little bit in South America, but Asia and China specifically feels kind of like a black box to me. Like, what is the Chinese Federation to the WBF like? How do they differ from us? How are they similar?
Well, my girlfriend, Hong Ding, is from China, and she's an enthusiastic and successful bridge player. So I've learned something about this from her and from some of the players she's introduced me to. China is quite interesting. They have a thriving professional bridge culture. They have intercity team matches where clubs in one city compete against clubs in other cities all throughout the year. They hire professionals. The club may be sponsored by a local business. The professionals don't even have to be from China. Some come from other countries to play for the Chinese club, more like the physical sports that we're used to.
They're hiring ringers.
Yeah, sure.
Do they have playing sponsors like we do?
On those teams, not that I know of, but I'm less familiar with that. They have different bridge organization. Bridge administration in China is very different than in the other countries I'm familiar with.
In what ways?
Well, they don't have a national organization with members the way the ACBL does. The players, they have a large number of players, but a small formal membership. I think the players just show up for tournaments, but they don't have to sign something and join the way they would in the ACBL. I have not been to a Chinese bridge tournament. That might be interesting.
Yeah, I would like to. It seems to me that they're doing something right. Like, it seems like the Chinese teams are getting better and better.
Yeah, they have a lot of strong players, and it helps to have a large population to draw from. But the way I think about it, it's a numbers game. Whatever percentage of your population might become a top bridge player, but then how many of them are actually going to find the game of bridge and like it well enough compared to the hundreds of other things they could be doing.
And find it early enough.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. I started when I was 15, and, Adam Kaplan started when he was 8 or something. maybe younger.
Do you feel like you're better today than you were 10 years ago?
I think let's take 20 years ago. I think I'm roughly the same, better in some ways, worse in others, but the field has improved. So I'm less competitive on that account. So I won my first national event in 1992, the Blue Ribbon Pairs, playing with a new partner. We had never played until that event. I figured that was unlikely to happen again. I was right, so far anyway. And I realized then I wasn't a strong enough player to win every national event I entered or close to that. I could win maybe one event in 40. So at that point, I resolved to play in every nationals and every event just to win occasionally, and did win the same event 5 years later, not with somebody I'd never played with before, but with somebody I'd played with occasionally. Then Doug Daub and I started playing in 2002, started playing seriously. We'd played a handful of regional events before then, and we did well. So we won a lot of things in the aughts and maybe a bit after. But the field keeps getting stronger and stronger.
To what do you attribute that?
The short answer is I don't know. I mean, it started maybe early 90s, but when the ACBL decided to allow foreigners to play in our national tournaments, so that made our nationals stronger, but it helped make bridge worldwide stronger. Something, again, we learned from Anders Ericsson. You only improve through competition. Playing, I mean, you can compete with yourself sometimes, but you have to be able to measure your performance against the best. Also, online bridges probably help. You can practice a lot more easily than you used to be able to. And some people practice obsessively.
You can certainly get to 10,000 hours a lot faster now.
Right, but that's not, I think, what Erickson would call deliberate practice. But it is better than no practice at all. And it'll have some of the elements if you go over your results with your partner after, which online bridge makes it easier to do than playing face to face because you have a complete record of everything. And if you don't get to it for a week or two or three, you still have the context.
What do you think of some of the strengths of your partnership with Doug?
We both have a level of emotional maturity, so we don't, we move on to the next board. We know our system pretty well. We didn't. First World Championship we played in, we'd been playing regularly for less than a year. I only remember one major screw up during the round robin. And we have similar styles. We know what to expect from one another.
How important do you think that is in a partnership style?
It's extremely important on the one hand. On the other hand, my first blue ribbon I won with Haig Chamish, and he and I have quite different styles. He agreed to play my system, which probably a mistake for me even to suggest it because he didn't really know it. But, he was playing it to humor me. It worked out all right when we didn't have many boards where it mattered.
I've heard actually a lot of those stories of we agreed to play the night before, an hour before, and then you win in some of these big events. Do you think there's something to just like keeping it simple?
There is, I think, in a regular partnership, agreements are good as long as you can remember all of them. But playing with a new partner, people try harder to make sure their partner's going to understand their bids and their plays. We take our regular partner for granted sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're just like, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna try this. I think they should figure it out, but I'm not gonna put them under that pressure. Well, Adam, thank you for talking with me. This has been great and always a pleasure.
You're welcome.